Classic connoisseurs of the creepy and chilling rejoice, as there is a whole Addams Family reunion. With Wednesday's Wednesday release, fans are fawning over the corpses and capers at Nevermore Academy. Y'all know we'll be back to dig up those graves, but for now, let's go over just a few details and references you may have missed in season 1 of Wednesday. Hey, it's Patrice with Screen Rant, and obviously there's going to be some spoilers ahead. So if you haven't watched Wednesday, I don't know why you're on this video. Go watch Wednesday. This is one of the 2 explicit references Wednesday makes to the first Addams Family show. The line, "They're kooky like you," which gets Wednesday defensive because she responds with, "I prefer spooky." If you needed a reminder, here it is.
You're not scary, you're just kinda kooky.
I prefer spooky.
But if we're going to go over one of the most well-known theme songs in TV history, we're gonna make a little game out of it. Let's see if you can try to say it along without snapping. They're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky, they're all together ooky, the Addams Family. Yeah, I'm not a singer, so I didn't sing that. The now famous theme was composed in 1964 by gilded Hollywood composer Vic Mizzy. It's mostly missing in the Wednesday show beyond the 2 blaring callbacks we have to it on this list. After our brief touch with the red-hot pitchfork that is Reagan's legacy, we get to dive headfirst into the murky moss-covered lake that is Edgar Allan Poe's. Nevermore Academy wears its Poe inspiration on its sleeves, claiming he is one of the most famous alumni and the inspiration for the Poe Cup. But he was no stranger to controversy, be it his weird obsession for his cousin or his debilitating alcoholism. Edgar Allan Poe was precisely unrestrained. Before we leave this entry, his raven which screeches Nevermore was indirectly inspired by the often tragic Charles Dickens, who will appear once more in due time.
Ophelia is the one who kills herself after being driven mad by her family, correct?
As Wednesday so astutely points out, Ophelia drowns. Who is Ophelia, you may wonder? Well, if you don't know, then you probably haven't seen a little known play called Hamlet, where in the play she's Hamlet's love interest. In Wednesday, she is the namesake for her dorm and drowns forever in the pond. But her death isn't as concrete as Wednesday makes it seem. She mostly dies off stage in the show, so her passing can come as a little bit of a mystery. I mean, she is speaking almost nonsense when Hamlet sees her last, so the idea is she's so overcome with the plots and deaths that she succumbs to her depression. But there are other theories. Could she have simply fell in and drowned? Was she perhaps pregnant and couldn't bear the thought of living without her love? You should watch the show and decide for yourself. We could go on and on about the use of names in fiction, so you could guess by the name of this entry who we're going to focus on for now. In the show, Ajax the Gorgon slithers his locks into the heart of Wednesday's fanged roommate Enid, but he shares more than just a short fate with Medusa. If you recognize his name, it's probably due to the Deadpool character of the same name. Our scaly friend shares little in common with that character though, besides the name. A name that dates all the way back to the ancient Greeks, where Ajax is a figure living in the shadow of Odysseus and Achilles. A very fitting name, as this is the very mythology that birthed the Gorgon as we know it today. The first sign Thornhill was up to no good was her initial gift to Wednesday. The Black Dahlia was a murder case involving the gruesome slaying and dismembering of Elizabeth Short, named such due to her strikingly dark hair and dress. Now we understand the dark humor in a beautiful flower that's associated with such an ugly crime. We are, after all, on Wednesday's side. We're not the normies. But Thornhill is. She's supposed to be, at least. Why would someone willingly give another person a reminder of a murder, when any other macabre flower would work just as well? It really could have been foreshadowing the horrid plans Thornhill had in store for our poor Wednesday. Because as she said, there are no coincidences. This may just be a product of Burton doing the Addams Family, but there is a constant reinforcement of a black and white motif. Of course, Wednesday isn't a fan of color, and this is a Burton product, but it goes deeper than a color palette. Wednesday is told life is not black and white. She's told that she's in black and white, and even her portrait painted by her admirer Xavier has her signature domino look. Now this is far from a bad thing, mind you. The Addams Family started off in black and white, so it's nice to see it being used well. Even when Wednesday is wearing something outside of her normal muted uniform, she's still showing her Addams pride. If you weren't listening carefully, you might have missed this very intrinsic aspect of Wednesday's character in the show. When fixing the espresso machine for her soon-to-be first kiss, Wednesday says she's learned Italian because it's Machiavelli's native tongue. Who is Machiavelli? You may know him from his most famous work, The Prince. Machiavelli was an Italian diplomat and politician whose most famous belief was that for those who rule, it is far better to be feared rather than to be liked. The very sentiment that Wednesday seems to live by. Of course, the show is in a way an extended character study. By the end of it, Wednesday is far more comfortable with people not necessarily fearing her. So this is technically 2 entries in one, so listen closely. Nero was a Roman emperor famous for setting his dissenters on fire. There's a common myth that he played the fiddle as Rome burnt around his palace. While that sounds cool as hell, this is false. In fact, the instrument he was supposed to be playing wouldn't have been invented yet. But his horrible reputation is probably why Wednesday named her Scorpion after him. But that's not all. This is clever foreshadowing to her later actions, because as the statue of Crackstone burns, Wednesday is there watching it playing her cello, which hopefully I don't need to remind you now is related to the very instrument Nero supposedly played. And this is far from the first time Wednesday has used fire for revenge. There is no possible way the black cat outfits the Ophelia dorm wears are completely coincidental. The leather and cloth fabric stitched together at odd angles, the overall cat theme, the very fact that Tim Burton himself is directing half of the episodes. Y'all can't tell me Wednesday's outfit isn't a reference to Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. If you needed more proof the last one was no mistake, then look no further than the boys team. They're all dressed as court jesters with clown makeup, all of which also bear a striking resemblance to another criminal clown we've come to know. It doesn't help that they're also called those Jokers, but I'm staying on this fact too long. Let's move on. So just to backtrack a little here, Charles Dickens inspired Edgar Allan Poe in more ways than one, and the show is no different. Charles Dickens had a pet raven that also helped inspire Poe's famous feathered foe, but sadly that raven has died. And what do you do with the dead? Stuff them, of course. That sounds sick, but hear me out. Dickens himself was a fan of taxidermy, having several himself, meaning Uriah's Heep is more than a clever Dickens reference. It's a rather fitting name given the circumstance. It also shares a name with a late 60s rock man, meaning the rocking mouse with the mohawk belongs more than he knows. Clouds are clearing and I think I might wolf out. So let's speed these up a bit, shall we? Goody Addams has a clear connection to Goody Proctor, who was tried and almost executed for being a witch. She thankfully survived. A smaller nod to a naughty nuisance in the never-ending Addams clan is a portrait to a not-so-familiar face for fans, the ladies' man Cousin It. And who exactly is this handsomely haired fellow? And how is he related? Like so many things in the Addams family, it's not quite simple. He's a product of the producer of The 60s Show, not an Addams original. He's related to Gomez in some way, and the Playboy has an IQ of 300. I can feel some of you guys shaking needing to know. What's under his hair? Roots, of course. Speaking of those loose familial connections, we get a reference to the ever mysterious Addams' grandmother. Like Nancy Reagan, but more pleasant to be around, Wednesday's grandmother is an old witch who can be seen plotting and toiling over potions and brews. She really is a matriarch to be feared. But whose mother is she? Nobody knows for sure. I guess when you get that old, you really could be anyone to anybody. Though I have a sneaky suspicion that by the time that riddle is solved, she'll have outlived us all. Equal parts eccentric, erotic, and explosive, in the latter half of the season we get to see Fred Armisen play Uncle Fester, and with his newfound role comes some newfound power. Fester has always been one to elude death in the law, but how exactly could he show such frightening feats of electric manipulation? It could be from an electric chair misfire, but in reality it's a reference to one of his more famous gags. Missing entirely from the Wednesday series is Fester's iconic light bulb tick, in which he would bite a bulb and make it shine. It's never been explained how exactly he pulls off this party trick, but you know, it isn't too much of a logical leap to say it comes from some kind of electrical current that he can manipulate at will. Where would you guys film a show about vampires, werewolves, and outcasts of the like? Well, Wednesday decided to film in Transylvania, Romania, of course. Much of the show and its principal photography was based out of the legendary region. A cool little connection to all things supernatural. But let's not just leave it at that. While many of our favorite creeps and crawlies find themselves haunting its ground, think Dracula and the like, most Romanians wouldn't be caught dead with garlic hanging off their necks. So why do we associate the area with the dark and decrepit? We have Vlad and Bram to thank. You may know Vlad by his other name, the Impaler or Dracula. When writing his 1897 horror story, Bram borrowed the Romanian setting. Speaking of spooky settings, make sure you guys keep those eyes peeled, because the entirety of Nevermore Academy is crammed with fun little Easter eggs. From the gargoyles that almost kill Wednesday being modeled after the various groups in the high school, to the portrait of a young Morticia and Gomez sitting in a very familiar looking wicked chair. The set design is truly something to be admired. Does that twisted botanist seem familiar to you? Because I swear I've seen those murderous eyes before, but they were behind pigtails with a burning camp behind her. So it's quite obvious that Christina Ricci is far from the average normie. She herself once wore the dark dull dress that Ortega has mastered. For a lot of fans, when they picture Wednesday, their minds flash to her portrayal in the early 90s. The show even pits the two against each other in a battle of wits. The prospect of now undertaking a character alongside Ricci was daunting to Ortega, but as stated before, she was quick to find her stride. Aside from the offhand remark that the two aren't so different, which Wednesday denies of course, the show usually leaves the past behind, save for the family reunion line. But Nicole Fulgero wasn't in the show, so we can move on. Any Addams family member could tell you about their distaste for all things uppity. Who other than Wednesday would give us that knowledge by claiming she could eat Girl Scouts for breakfast? A reference to a long chain of Wednesday not liking the outdoorsy group of girls. She also expressed regret in the '91 films that their cookies weren't made from real cookies. Moonlight bleeds through the spiderweb framed window, brawling its silky pattern across the decaying wooden floor in bright yellows and pinks. But outside sits our mistress of mayhem, sawing her cello with an eerie vigor. Her fingers pull notes out of the ether like bats in the night, continuously creeping the melody along, contorting with the music itself as if possessed by the instrument. This is no song of the damned, nor is this a bewitching song to call the lost. This is Painted Black by the Rolling Stones. But through her spindling fingers, Ortega produces a cello solo worthy of two cellos themselves. This penchant for music will not be the last for dear Wednesday.
That I'm going to be responsible for something terrible. Not good terrible like Ivan.
Reputations precede those who find themselves in Wednesday's gaze of admiration. Her love for all things troubled and terrible means anyone she finds worthwhile to learn about have done some unsightly things. I'm talking specifically of no other than the model for all things terrible, Ivan the Terrible. Ivan was the first Tsar of Russia in the latter half of the 16th century, 1547 to 1584 to be exact. He's mostly known for his aggressive land gathering. But what makes Ivan so terrible? His paranoia and a little political propaganda? Maybe. The quick and dirty of it is this. For the longest time, people believed he had struck his son dead with a metal cane. However, that may not be true. Either way, he seems to be a pretty good role model for Wednesday, I guess. Cryptologists, get out your pens and papers because we're talking about some of the most fun things in mysteries, ciphers. Granted, this one was mostly just an anagram, but a clever one nonetheless. We won't spoil the actual riddles or their solutions because it was very fun to find out the answer alongside Wednesday, and we wouldn't want to rob you of that fun. But the actual answer and entrance to the secret library of the Nightshades is simply snapping twice. An extremely obvious nod to the theme once again, but one that brings a devilish smile to the faces of fans. Let's stop for a second and ask a few questions though. How many students and faculty must walk past this Edgar Allan Poe statue every day of the year? Let's be conservative and say 100. In just 1 year alone, that's 36,500 times someone would be near the prized poet. And nobody has ever accidentally snapped twice near it? Something's not adding up. Thornhill's second to last gift to Wednesday was yet another slight towards Wednesday's failure to uncover her nefarious plots. Because much like the iconic hubristic doctor before her, Thornhill is using the stolen parts from the dead to create her own life. Or recreate it. Where does resurrection fall on the spectrum of creation versus recreation? Monster is not the fairest way to describe the ghoulish beast living inside Tyler. As previously stated, the hunched over, roided out golem was designed by no other than Burton himself, and his inspiration can be seen pretty clearly in Xavier's Shed, because so many of his paintings resemble the extremely gruesome Saturn devouring his son by Francisco Goya. His long limbs, hunched frame, and even the terrifying bulging eyes match the Titan's most stomach-churning act. We'll end with the sweetest, if slightly unsettling scene in the entire show. The Raven is Nevermore's prom, so you know there's going to be great details hidden throughout the dance. But why are we ending on it? Is it because of the clear Carrie reference, or Wednesday absolutely killing it on the dance floor? Both good, but there's something even more. The entire school is told to wear white, making this a pearly white raven. White ravens can be interpreted in two ways, either something extremely rare, or an omen of doom. Both work well with the scene. Wednesday had fun dancing with a date. Never heard of, it's so rare. And the unfortunate animalistic attack on poor Eugene in the woods. Never trust a white raven. Now we must take our leave from the living and embrace the sweet stolen slumber of all those who've come before. But like any good Addams, this is far from the end.
We would be doing you fine people in the audience a disservice if we didn't jump right back into the wildly, wickedly wonderful world of Netflix's Wednesday. So strap yourselves into your electric chairs, light your sticks of dynamite, and let's rock and roll into a few facts you might not have known about Netflix's Wednesday. I'm Joey C. Let's go! Where better to start than the titular Wednesday herself? Burton wanted Jenna Ortega over anyone, and his vision was more than 20/20. Not only was the dry-humored actress compared to the gothic princess throughout her life, she met with the director over Zoom in complete horror getup, blood and all. Once she got her hand on the role, Ortega was a piranha in the water. With a vicious glee, she tackled all the skills her character needed to possess. To start, she learned how to play the cello to an impressive degree, even though she had never picked up the instrument before. She took German lessons for a scene that lasted almost exactly 20 seconds. She even signed up for kickboxing and fencing classes just in case. Oh, and she decided to do all her own stunts. All of her preparation can be felt on screen, breathing new life into Wednesday, making the character a more active participant in her story. We can thank Doctor Who for knowing not to trust stone angels. It also led to a whole generation of people who are probably really good at staring contests. One of whom I can assume is Ortega herself. Not because she's afraid of a few weeping angels, but because Burton asked her specifically not to blink while playing Wednesday. Meaning throughout the first season, she only blinks a handful of times, when Wednesday is startled or hurt. Characters who don't blink can be found all throughout media, be it an adolescent android in AI, a serial-killing liquid metal robot in Terminator 2, or just an actual serial killer in Silence of the Lambs. Not blinking can be used to evoke a feeling of unease and making a character seem inhumane. But for Wednesday specifically, the effect does more than make her a shark in the pond. If you didn't know, the Addams Family started as a comic in a newspaper.
More on that later.
And Burton was trying to infuse some of the comic energy into this show, and her not blinking just adds to his overall plan. Just mentioning Hannibal wafts a bergamot aroma into the air, or it could be Thing hiding nearby. But while we're on the fan favorite Fiend, did you know that he is done almost entirely with practical effects and makeup? Sure, they had to key out the 6'2" magician that is Victor Dorobantu, but beyond that, his real physical hand was on set with all the actors making the sassy signs and snaps, a feat that was harder on the makeup department than on the VFX artists at times, mainly due to the extensive tattoos Dorobantu had on his hands during filming, but the man was determined to make Thing feel as fleshed out as possible. The thing is, set design can be overlooked. It's an art all to itself, and because it is designed to the background, we can forget how much effort can be put into those walls we see passed by. So here's a chance to gush about Mark Scruton's work at designing the Nevermore Academy, starting with Wednesday and Enid's iconic webbed mirror. Wanting a diegetic reason to split the room in half by the use of color, the decision that Enid colored the windows does this perfectly. Moving on to Nevermore itself, the solace from Normies for Outcasts and Outliers is infused with the very essence of its residents. He has stated in many interviews that he got the inspiration from Victorian, Ottoman, Moorish, and Gothic architecture, and not to mention the original Addams Family house exterior. Sense of scale is super important for making the awe-inspiring. For example, if I told you that our sun, in all its massive glory, was but a medium-sized ball of plasma, that wouldn't mean much. But when I add the fact that it would take over 1 million Earths to fill the volume of our sun, maybe you'll get the sense of scale. Now, the actor who plays Lurch, George Burcia, stands at an outstanding 6'6". The handsome half-dead Romanian butler looks his stature, but keep in mind that just about 1% are even over 6'4". Now to bring it all home, Burcia is to date the shortest actor ever to play Lurch. He's 3 inches shy of the OG Theodore Crawford Cassidy, and a whole 1.5 feet under the tallest Carol Stryken. Now to be fair, what little time he has to shine, this dwarf star Lurch is as bright as his brethren, and still looms over the rest. Needing no further ado, Christina Ricci takes the plant by the stem as the normie dorm mother Thornhill. And it's law, of course, that I tell you she also played Wednesday in her youth, but you already knew that. But she offers so much more than nostalgia bait as the secret thorn in Ortega's Wednesday's side. Being the one behind the many plots and murders around the Academy, she also was the cleanup hitter for the production. Originally, there was a whole other character being played by Thora Birch. After having filmed the majority of her scenes, a personal matter arose and she sadly had to leave. It's a shame, but with every storm, there comes a rainbow. But soon after, Richie was brought in to fill the gaps. Sure, a lot of her shots were shot in front of a screen or her alone in the shot, but the Addams alum is a very welcomed addition. From frightening stars to everyone's cool aunt, Weems has an almost unexplainable charm and vibe that keeps us on our toes every scene she finds her carefully manicured fingers on. This is in part from Gwendolyn Christie's fantastic acting, and from the character's construction from the get-go. Being clothed in gray works threefold. Not only is it an understated success in fashion, but a statement on her character, doing not-so-good things for good reasons. Lastly, she is built from the ground up as a reference to the Hitchcock film Birds, looking very similar to a one Melanie Daniels. The hair, the outfit, it's a dead ringer. But before we move on, there's something we should get straight. Weems isn't new to the Addams Family world either. The original Weems was a babysitter in the comics, and that's where the writers found her when making the show, meaning Weems is as much principal as she is a chaperone. In The White Raven, she can be seen watching Wednesday closely. Maybe because she's happy to see her break through her shell. Maybe it's because she's dancing like a teenage goo-goo muck, a dance everyone is raving about. So let's talk about that. Ortega's arm-pumping, body-flailing Wednesday shuffle has some pretty deep-cut inspirations for music and Addams fans alike, starting with the more obvious ones and going from there. Ortega said that she looked at performances like Susie Sue to inspire her choreographed dance. Susie Sue is the lead singer of an English goth punk band called the Banshees. But Ortega didn't stop there. She jumped all the way back to 1964 to see a little Lisa Loring dancing with the 6ix9ine Lurch. In the original series, in the episode Lurch Learns to Dance, we get to see the original Wednesday Shuffle, which would over time crystallize into Jenna Ortega's creepy shuffle, man. It's fantastic to watch. Did somebody say Lurch? Because this formidable fellow has been an Addams Family favorite since the original comics, meaning it's quite sad we never got to see him in the weather vane. Why, you may ask, are these two seemingly unrelated thoughts mashed together? Because that little coffee house is much more than it seems. Starting with the name. Weathervane is the name of the school newspaper where Charles Addams first formed his characters. Publishing his comics in the small student paper helped form the creepy and crawly characters we've all come to know and love. It's only reasonable that Wednesday's first frolic in the normie world is where she was first formulated. And let's not forget Tyler's hello. Quote, "You rang?" A direct quote to Lurch's signature line to those who come to the Addams Family manor. So pay homage for a cup of coffee at the newspaper that built the idols of Charles Addams. The Garden State is the butt of many jokes. Maybe it is so close to its big brother New York. Maybe because it just got off the wrong foot with the rest of the Union. In any case, New Jersey is home to a lot of talented individuals, and we can't forget that. The likes of Meryl Streep, Bruce Springsteen, and Frank the Sinatra. It's no joke. Nor should it be much of a surprise that Charles Addams, the creator of the Addams Family, was born on its soil. And in honor of his native state, the spooky family he made are all just the same. Don't believe me? Well, on the specifically made limo in Wednesday, we can see the license plate is registered in no other state than New Jersey. Did you know that Wednesday is derived from the Germanic god Odin? How? Well, forget all about what you've learned from the Nordic gods of the MCU. A lot of mythology is seen through a Greco-Roman lens. Odin was sometimes pronounced Woden, and to honor the big daddy of the Norse, a day was given just to him, making Wednesday a pretty important day. Even now, the hump day is used for some pretty important things, such as Ortega announcing she would play Wednesday on a Wednesday. The filming wrapped March 30th, 2022. What day was that? A Wednesday. And finally, the show was released November 23rd, a Wednesday, making Wednesday the most Wednesday show that has ever Wednesdayed. Wandering through the halls of Nevermore, we can stumble into the extremely decorated office of Principal Weems. And there is a lot to talk about here, starting with that grisly stuffed bear she has, which was specifically added as a reference to the bear the Addams family had in their unliving room. Moving over to her desk, we can see a shrunken head in the classy display case, and luckily for Gomez, it is indeed that kind of shrink. In the portrait of Wednesday's dear parents, we can see them posing on a wicker chair, which is the same chair that they posed with in the original 1960s sitcom. Speeding up here at the end, the phone number we see in Wednesday is a dual reference to the debut of the Addams Family musical and the year the Addams Family started. Notice how every episode had the word "whoa" in it? Well, let's discuss how each of those episodes ties into the plot of that episode. We'll go chronologically here so you can follow along. Episode 1 should be self-explanatory, as it's just Wednesday's namesake. Episode 2, we have Wednesday, the only one who saw Rowan's death. Episode 3 opens up with Wednesday having been kidnapped by strangers. The legacy of Crackstone is called into question, and Weems seems less trustworthy. The 4th episode surrounds the Night of the Raven, so again, self-explanatory. The 5th sees Gomez arrested for alleged murder from decades prior. The 6th episode, Wednesday trades a birthday celebration for a murder investigation. 7th, we meet Fester, who we do know by now. And last but not least, the resurrection of a murdering monster, and a loss of someone on our side. Finishing off this list, we have great news. Fans watched a total of 341 million hours of the newly beloved show in just the first week, a number that will only grow. Numbers not even the flagship Stranger Things have reached.
Tim Burton and the Addams Family. It's hard to believe that this pairing took so long to finally happen, and that it would end up being Twin Peaks meets Vampire Academy. I'm Chris Goodmakers, and here's all the Tim Burton and Addams Family references you may have missed in Wednesday. Like any good small mountain town with a creepy supernatural secret, Jericho, Vermont has a cute little coffee and pie shop.
You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
Wednesday Addams and the other members of the Nevermore Academy frequent Weathervane's coffee shop. It's a cute little diner that has a theme, and it's sticking to it. The decorations on the wall are various Weathervanes that actually contain several Tim Burton Easter eggs. One has Willy Wonka's hat, while another features the Headless Horseman from Tim Burton's underrated mystery thriller, Sleepy Hollow. The production actually worked in these Tim Burton references without the director's knowledge. In fact, Sleepy Hollow is referenced a few times with the burnt-out cabin in the woods, and the Witchfinder accosting an innocent young white-haired witch. Hopefully we get a cameo next season from Christopher Walken and those teeth. The town of Jericho has a few tourist attractions, but I guess none are as pivotal to the economy as Pilgrim World. The historical theme park is full of replica stockades, costumes, and anachronistic fudge.
Fudge with a is 258 jaar spete erfunden.
Pilgrimland and its buckle-themed attire is a direct reference to the second of the classic Barry Sonnenfeld films. Addams Family Values has the sardonic goth Wednesday and her portly brother Pugsley sent to a chipper summer camp at the height of the Thanksgiving holiday. The sequel sees Wednesday disrupt the celebration, something that's echoed when she and Thing light the town's new statue ablaze. Wednesday's story in the new Netflix series actually ties far more closely with the colonial times than the 1993 sequel did, with the young Addams getting caught up in a plot that started with her ancestor Goody Addams. Still, it's a very deliberate nod to some of the more memorable imagery in the family's history. Nevermore Academy has a lot of activities available for its supernatural students. There is canoeing and swimming. There's even a cappella and fencing. Wednesday tries a few of them out, mostly to prove she's better at them than the dead-eyed Bianca. However, there is one activity that is a clear reference to a former pastime of the dour daughter of Gomez and Morticia. Wednesday has a history with a bow and arrow, and especially when it comes to practicing on her brother Pugsley. Her skill with archery comes as a direct reference to the classic 90s movies, where she also wielded the ancient weapon. She was trying to recreate the famous William Tell folktale, but has some strange ideas about the placement of the apple. Actually, while I mention that, the first Addams we see besides the show's titular character is her younger brother Pugsley. Wednesday's put-upon sibling has found himself stuffed in a locker like so many Millhouses before him. In fact, that's not the only stuffing that's happening. Wow, I should really watch my phrasing. Pugsley has an apple stuffed in his mouth. It's a direct reference to his first appearance in the 1991 Sonnenfeld film, where he was also tied up with an apple in his mouth. Of course, in the film, it was his sister who imprisoned him, and not some high school bullies.
The only person who gets to torture my brother is me.
All of these references to the 90s film are pretty ironic. Originally, Tim Burton was going to direct the adaptation of the classic show, but he backed out before production began. Could this be a bit of regret from the Gothic filmmaker? I'm not exactly pining for that version though. I know this unsolicited opinion might make you angry, viewer, but Barry Sonnenfeld is the better director. Disagree? Then just go watch Men in Black again.
I make this look good.
When it comes to the Addams, there's nothing more iconic than their finger-snapping theme song. It's one of the more recognizable pieces of music associated with the television series. It's easy to learn and an earworm of the highest order. Despite Wednesday having her own title track that Netflix captions describe as jauntily macabre theme music, the classic track gets a few nods. The first episode has Wednesday and her new friend Tyler echo the theme song with the words kooky and spooky.
You're just kind of kooky.
I prefer spooky.
There's also the code used on the secret entrance, which is a very distinct set of finger snaps. I'm sure the series is saving a rendition of the classic theme song for a future episode, but for now it's hard not to have some kind of reference to one of television's most important theme songs. Now if they can just find a way to incorporate MC Hammer's Addams Family groove into a future episode, I'll die happy. While we're at it, why don't we bring back Hammer Pants too? They were comfortable and stylish. Do, hammer time. The students of Nevermore are mandated into some local community outreach. It's an attempt by the school to make the locals less afraid of the teenagers filled with raging hormones, that also have the ability to turn people into stone. Yeah, I see no flaws with this plan whatsoever. One piece of outreach has werewolf Enid trying to impress her crush with her dead animal cleaning skills. The rodent taxidermy was created to specifically reference several of Tim Burton's works, including Edward Scissorhands. There's also a reference to another work of longtime Tim Burton collaborator Johnny Depp with the Freddy Krueger mouse. Tim Burton never directly made a nightmare film, but Beetlejuice was close enough. The new Netflix series features most of the Gothic family at various points, with Luis Guzman's Gomez, Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia, and even very briefly Fred Armisen as Fester. However, there are a few members that are very absent for the entire series. One such member is everyone's favorite hairy cousin, Ignatius It. The 3-foot-tall walking mound of hair is seen on and off throughout the franchise. Well, the extended family member does get a small cameo in the form of a painting in the secret library. We'll have to wait to see if Cousin It makes a proper appearance. The chittering mound of hair is often a source of humor and fun in the franchise, especially if he brings his wife along. Well, actually, now that I bring her up, when Wednesday finds herself in the elite school of monsters and magic known as Nevermore Academy, she is told that she will be living in Ophelia Hall.
Ophelia is the one who herself after being driven mad by her family. Correct?
While the young Addams girl refers to the classic work by William Shakespeare, the actual namesake of the hall is someone much closer to her. Ophelia Frump is actually the older sister of Morticia Addams. Despite looking very similar to her sibling, she is very different. She is mostly happy and outgoing in a very love child sort of way. However, she harbors a depressive streak that rivals even her vampire-like sister. She also has a long history with the Addams, eventually marrying Cousin It after being formally engaged to Gomez in an arranged marriage. What can I say? She's into guys with facial hair, or guys who are mostly facial hair. The young goth girl may seem like she has a heart of pure stone, but we learn that she has a soft spot for the creepiest of crawlies. During a bonding moment with her new roommate Enid, she recalls her pet scorpion Nero. Her exoskeleton-encased friend and her are out for a walk when they are accosted by some bullies and poor Nero is run over. It was the last time she ever cried, vowing never to get sad, but get even. Which is why she honors him by playing a stringed instrument while something burns. This isn't the only multi-legged pet that Wednesday has had. Previously in the franchise, she was known for having a pet tarantula named Homer. She was very proud of the arachnid in the old black and white series, and it looks like that love of spiders carried over to the new series. The flashback to her birthday party features a piñata filled with thousands of them. They terrify the guests, but she stands proud, even as they crawl over her body. Despite her disdain for her parents, it looks like the young Addams has picked up a few things from them. She talks about how her hand-to-hand combat and martial arts skills are the result of Uncle Fester's time in a Tibetan monastery.
Was he a monk?
Prisoner.
However, it also looks like she's been watching her father's sword fighting techniques. Wednesday challenges her rival Bianca to a duel of the fates, aka sport fencing. The match quickly turns aggressive, and the pair agree to gentlemen's rules of first to draw blood. This fencing match, while far more intense, echoes the one from the opening of the first Addams Family film. Gomez engages in a battle of blades with Dan Hedaya. The Addams patriarch even disarms his opponent and does some quick acrobatics like his daughter. Wednesday is a hit. While we got to see very little of the rest of the Addams family, they also got to shine with some fun lines.
Wednesday always looks half dead.
We can't get the new Tim Burton series out of our heads. The new take on the age-old sitcom Family is loaded with so many details, Easter eggs, and fun moments that we can't fit it all into just one video. I'm Chris Goodmakers, and these are some more details you may have missed in Wednesday. The local coffee shop in Jericho is full of references to both the show's creator Tim Burton and the history of the Addams family. I already covered the decorations in my last video, but even the name holds a deeper meaning. The name Weather Vane actually comes from the name of Charles Addams' old high school periodical. You know, from the days when high schools would have their own magazines? The publication is actually where Charles Addams first published his cartoons. It was the beginning of a journey that led to the Goth family debuting on televisions across America. Wednesday isn't the only Addams that sticks around for the entire series. While we do get some episodes featuring Gomez, Morticia, and even Pugsley, they are mostly absent. The five-fingered stealth machine known as Thing is around for the whole season. Originally, he's left at Nevermore Academy to spy on the goth teenager. However, she quickly turns the tables and threatens the appendage into submission. She mentions that she could smell his hand lotion from a mile away.
My highly trained olfactory sense wouldn't pick up on the faint whiff of neroli and bergamot in your favorite hand lotion.
The lotion she mentions is actually the same one mentioned by Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter in the Oscar-winning Silence of the Lambs. This isn't even the only classic film referenced in the series. If there's anything that Animal House taught us, it's that the biggest enemy of fun is a snooty school administrator. Wednesday has her own problem authority figure in the form of Principal Weems, played by the tall and intimidating Gwendolyn Christie. She is seemingly in charge at Nevermore Academy, and she has the style to match. Weems's look is inspired by and copied from the classic Alfred Hitchcock film, The Birds. Her platinum blonde hair and Jackie Onassis-inspired wardrobe match the one sported by the Hitchcock protagonist Melanie Daniels, played by Tippi Hedren. So where do the Addams actually live? And how far away is the Academy from Wednesday's family home? Nevermore is in Jericho, Vermont. However, the Addams home doesn't seem to have a set location. The 60s show was filmed with a house in LA, but the show had their address as 001 Cemetery Lane, next to a swamp and graveyard. I know a place somewhere like that could actually exist. New Jersey. Charles Addams was born and lived most of his life in New Jersey, and he also originated the cartoon characters there while working for New Yorker magazine. Wednesday pays homage to this and gives a hint at the Addams home state when we see that their car's license plate is registered in the Garden State. That's roughly a 7-hour drive. That really puts Lurch's eye roll in perspective, given that he's been behind the wheel for the whole day, while these two carry on with every song on the radio. I'm kinda shocked he didn't just drive the whole family off a cliff. Jenna Ortega has gained a lot of attention for her lead role. It's easy to see why. The success she's had since the series release is well earned, especially with what she had to go through while filming. Her big dance number caught the internet on fire, which is helped by the fact that she had a high fever while filming it. The star came down with COVID during the scene, testing positive after the shoot had wrapped. Ortega choreographed the dance herself, having as little as a week to cobble together the sequence from various sources. I guess when Netflix is finding room in the budget, choreographers are the first to go. So here is a tale of a young girl in a new school who has a gothic sensibility and a unique gift. She meets her peppy blonde roommate, and together they defy the popular clique and the school's administration. Okay, I'm gonna stop being obtuse. This is the plot to the Broadway hit and soon-to-be film franchise, Wicked. Wicked, which is a prequel of sorts to The Wizard of Oz, shares a lot in common with the Tim Burton Addams Family spin-off. Both take an established franchise and spin it with a new school-based setting. Elphaba and Wednesday also share a very similar sense of style and defiance in the face of both conformity and authority. Yeah, Wednesday is scarier than the Wicked Witch though. Ricci set the mold for Wednesday with her portrayal in the pair of classic 90s films, so her casting in the new Netflix series seems like a natural homage. However, she wasn't actually the first choice. Thora Birch was originally cast in the role. The star is best known for the box office smash and Academy Award winning Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry, I mean box office flop and cinematic travesty Dungeons and Dragons. American Beauty? Never seen it. According to Deadline, Birch had filmed most of her role when she was forced to leave the production. Ricci was brought in as a late-stage replacement, but had to film some of her earliest scenes against a green screen completely absent from the rest of the cast. This is referred to as the Tig Notaro. There are nods to the classic series all over the new Netflix show. I should know, I made a whole other video about it. However, there are a few things I missed. Like a giant, terrifying bear. Principal Weems has a pretty cavernous office, and hibernating in it is a stuffed bear looming over potential new students and their parents. The bear is an homage to one the Addams had in the original series, or Addams TOS if you're a Star Trek nerd like me. In the series, the piece of home decor was set up in the Addams living room.
Are you feeling okay? You look a little pale.
Wednesday always looks half dead.
Now that the first season has been out for over a month, we can get some perspective on its success. Wednesday is an absolute hit for the streaming service. In the first week, the series has garnered 341 million hours, watched across 50 million households. This breaks a record previously set by the fourth season of Stranger Things, which had 335 million hours. However, the records don't stop there. The series has just passed 1 billion total hours viewed, bringing it past Dahmer to the #1 all-time most viewed show on the streaming service.
This is the greatest moment of my entire life.
At this point, is there anyone who hasn't seen Wednesday? It's clear that the series will be getting a season 2 and probably a massive bump in budget. I guess it's time for the service to crack down even more on password sharing. Sorry, Auntie, no more Full House for you. I'm not paying the extra $2.99. Let's talk about one of the most important women in Hollywood that you probably never heard of, Colleen Atwood. No, she's not the author of The Handmaid's Tale, but one of the best costume designers in the history of cinema. Over the course of her career, she's been nominated for 12 Oscars, winning 4. Some of the films she has worked on include Chicago, Fantastic Beasts, Into the Woods, and Gattaca. That's honestly the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her influence on some of the biggest movies of the past 20 years. The designer brought the award-winning style to Wednesday. This is hardly the first time she's worked with director Tim Burton. She has been behind the scenes on almost all of his biggest films, including Sleepy Hollow and Edward Scissorhands. One of her 4 Oscars was even for the director's adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. For all the faults that movie had, the costumes were a strength. The effects, however... Atwood isn't the only Burton regular along for the production. The gothic bird's nest hair director also brought his favorite musician along. Danny Elfman has crafted the scores for many of Burton's biggest films including the iconic Batman theme. I would play it for you all, but YouTube would hang me upside down from a batarang. So you can just watch my face while I listen to it. Yeah! We get so pumped! Go get him, Batman! Elfman also crafted the title theme for the new series. It's ironic because the full title sequence is actually only played during the first and last episodes. The rest of the series has a much shorter title card. Wednesday is actually Elfman's 16th comic book adaptation, with his previous notables being the equally iconic scores for Raimi's Spider-Man and Men in Black. By the way, that sci-fi comedy was also directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, who also directed the 90s Addams Family films. There's a lot going on in Jenna Ortega's performance as the dour daughter, and a lot of nuance. One of the subtle nuances in her acting is the fact that she was very conscious of when Wednesday did and didn't blink. Ortega and Burton both agreed that the only time you would see Wednesday blink is when she was scared or surprised. Otherwise, her eyes are always open in an unending and very judgmental gaze. This one isn't so much of a deliberate choice, but rather just a fun coincidence that my movie-addled brain can't let go of. Tim Burton isn't the only person involved with the new Netflix series, despite how much credit his name absorbs. The show's creators are actually Alfred Goh and Miles Millar. They are a longtime writing duo who honestly have only had moderate success on some pretty forgettable films like The Mummy 3 and the Shanghai Noon series. They also have experience in comic book-based television with the series Smallville. Somebody save me from that Amy Addams episode where she eats people.
You can say you're sorry.
So here's where the coincidence comes in. Alfred Goh shares a last name with the late British actor Michael Goh. Michael Goh is best known for Tim Burton's Batman films, where he played Alfred. The pair are unrelated as showrunner Goh is an American, but it's actually an odd connection nonetheless. Michael Goh also shared the screen with Wednesday's actress in Burton's Sleepy Hollow, which shares strong thematic ties to Wednesday. Goh and Millar also get a sort of on-screen cameo in the series with their names written on the window to the therapist's office. This might be a mistake or something more intentional, but it revolves around Wednesday's ancient ancestor, Goody Addams, specifically why she's named Goody. In Puritan times, Goody was a title, not a name. It specifically referred to women of a lower class or status. When she was called Goody, it was as a put down by the Puritans around her. However, the show seems to imply it's an actual given name. Goody was the feminine version of this title, while the masculine was the more direct Goodman. Yes, like the actor John Goodman. You know what? Just because I barely have an excuse right now, here's that one scene from Barton Fink.
I'll show you the life of a mind! I'll show you the life of a mind!
Wednesday has a pretty distinctive name, and honestly, a much nicer one than her younger brother Pugsley. In the first episode of the series, Principal Weems assumes it was the day she was born. However, that's not the case.
I was born on Friday the 13th.
She is in fact named after a line in a nursery rhyme. The first episode is even named after this line. It's a theme that carries through the entire series because every single episode contains the word whoa, most in a clever pun. My personal favorite is quid pro quo. Well, the nursery rhyme is the origin of the young girl's name in both the show and real life. When Charles Addams created the family for his ongoing comic strip, he didn't bother giving them names. The Addams family was more of a possessive name. He was Charles Addams and they were the family he created. However, when the cartoon was adapted into a live-action sitcom, the apostrophe was dropped and their surname became Addams. Charles took the line from the poem and used it to name the sad, gothic little girl. I guess when it came to the younger brother, he just looked at his dog or something. Like any good school, Nevermore is full of activities and events for its student body. One such event is the annual canoe race, something I thought didn't exist outside of teen summer camp comedies. Was there a boat race in heavyweights? Yeah, I feel like there was. Anyway, the 4 boats competing in the race all share a similar theme. They are all based on Edgar Allan Poe's stories. Obviously, Enid and Wednesday's kitty-themed boat are based on the Poe work, The Black Cat. The other boats are a little more obscure, but they are based on the Cask of Amontillado, the Gold Bug, and the Pit and the Pendulum. That explains the one with the retractable axe that nearly decapitates Wednesday. What if that had worked? The young Addams was sent to Nevermore because she almost killed someone. I guess because it's legal in Vermont. There is a bit of foreshadowing in the very first scene involving Nevermore's student quad. When Enid brings Wednesday on a tour of the school, she stops at the assembly place and points out the various supernatural students in a sequence ripped right out of a Twilight-themed Mean Girls. The campus space is overlooked by a series of stone gargoyles that loom over the student body. The gargoyles are actually representative of the students and their various supernatural cliques. There are gargoyles of vampires, werewolves, and even sirens. The production specifically created these stone representations as a way to foreshadow the students and even a later reveal. Nevermore seems about as safe for students as Hogwarts, and the stone golems dangling precariously above students' heads are just another blatant health and safety violation. Wednesday is officially the biggest show Netflix has ever had, and it's not hard to see why. The series is charming and exciting and has a terrific lead performance. I don't think there's much more to say about the show at this point, so I'll leave you with a thought. Out of all the days of the week, Wednesday is the worst to spell. Written English language, you are the worst.